We're here. Good to see you. We are going through the Praxis Elementary Education 5001. Let me turn on my chat and let me check to see that I am live everywhere, which I should be. Looks like I am. Yay. I have like 3 screens going. So I'm trying to be live everywhere. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, through the webinar itself, and on TikTok. So today we are going over the Praxis 5001. As you come into the webinar, let me know in the chat where you're from and if you've taken this test and maybe some things that are tripping you up, or if you're new at this and you're just trying to figure out what's going on for your elementary education. I do have a colleague in the chat. Her name is Yana. She will help you with any questions you have. And we're going to go through all sections of this exam today. Now, very quickly, if you signed up for the webinar through the link, and if you're on TikTok, the link is in my bio. And if you're anywhere else, the link is in the description. You get a free study guide with this particular webinar. We are going to go through most of the study guide and I'm going to project it onto the screen. So even if you don't have the study guide in front of you, you didn't have time to download it, that's totally fine. You can download it later. And when you sign up for the webinar, so if you go to the link in my bio or you go to the link in the description, wherever you're watching this live, you can sign up. We basically grab your email and then we will send you the replay, the study guide, and any resources I go over today. If you're watching this live, and today is October, what is today, the 4th or the 5th? It is October 5th, 2024. If you're watching this in the future, because we always share it in the future, you are getting everything. So you already got it in the email, so check your email. Again, you don't have to download the study guide right this second if you didn't have time. I'm projecting everything on my screen for you today. And we are going through the Praxis 5001. This is the most common elementary education exam. This is the one lots of elementary ed teachers have to take. And even if you're not taking the Praxis and you're taking, let's just say in another state, you're taking another exam, they all cover the same stuff. So this is a free webinar. You might as well hang out and stay because whatever I talk about today is going to help you. And I'm going to teach you how to think like a test maker. So a lot of what I talk about today in this particular exam, you are going to be able to apply that to lots of different exams. So we've got Virginia, Colorado, Oklahoma, awesome, Tennessee, Kentucky, Maryland. Steph is completely new to this. Totally understand if you're a brand new teacher. The crazy part of becoming a teacher are the subject area exams and the Praxis core and all of that. That's what I do for a living. I study the testing industry and I try to help as many people pass these exams as much as possible. So really quick, I'll go through who I am and then we'll get started on the webinar. So my name is Kathleen Jasper, and for the last decade, I can't believe it's been 10 years, I have been helping teachers pass their teacher certification exams. It started off as ACT, SAT prep when I left public ed to become, my own boss. And then it moved into teacher certification exams and then leadership exams. I was a substitute teacher. I had to take all of these exams just like you do. And then I became a curriculum master teacher later on, which was a job downtown, which I highly recommend. Which I highly recommend because you get a lot of really good training when you go downtown to the district office. And so that's one that if you ever have a chance to go downtown in the curriculum department, definitely do it. That's where I learned about the testing industry because we had to make exams for the entire district. I went down as a science teacher, a high school science teacher. And then I became an assistant principal and helped more teachers with professional development and all of that. And then I quit public ed to start my own company. And here I am today, a decade later, which I can't believe. I have lots of books and all of that on Amazon. Today, we're going to be focusing on this. This is my brand new edition. This one is 600 pages. It's huge. This is a big exam. I'm going to go through all of it today. I'm first going to go into the chat before I show you anything else and just see what's going on. All right, we got some people from Florida, awesome, New Jersey, Kentucky, Tennessee, New Jersey. We always have a lot of teachers from New Jersey. We are in New Jersey a lot. I've passed all but math, okay? Math is really, really tough on this exam. A lot of you are like, I passed everything but math. Let me just see what's going on with my TikTok right now, guys. Looks like we're good, but it's telling me my live is restricted. Okay, that's great. I don't care if my live is restricted. Okay. The math. This is elementary education math, and there are questions about slope, X and Y intercept, things you may not have seen for 20 years if you're not a math person. If you like left college and you became, I don't know, in marketing, or you're somebody doing something besides math, some of this math you haven't seen in a long time. And that's why math can be really tough. Don't let anybody tell you this is an easy exam. It is not. It is huge. It's 4 huge subtests. And a lot of it is just really difficult because, things like, vertebrates versus invertebrates, and Mendel's pea plants. How long has it been since you thought about Mendel? It probably 30 years. So it's okay if you weren't successful your first time. We will be going over that. Now, I have a brand new math course for this exam. Today, we're going to go through it. And I have a lot of math on my YouTube channel if you want to go the free route. But I do have very extensive math help in my online course. Let me show you where. So you got a free study guide with this webinar. We're going to go through that in just a second. But I want to show you where you can get the big study guide. This one has everything. The free one is great too. Let me just share my screen really quickly so that I can show you where to get the actual study guides. I have a website, KathleenJasper.com. And if you go over to study guide here and you go elementary education, you can see the 5001 is here. And I'm kind of zoomed in on TikTok. Sorry, guys. It's got to be that way so you can see the actual webinar. But you can also get it on Amazon, and you can see we have almost 1,000 5-star ratings for this. All these links are in my bio. They will come to you in an email, everything. I just want to make sure that, we're on Amazon here. I want to make sure that you see all this before we get started. And then I have a course as well. Let me show you what the course looks like. And on TikTok, it's going to be a little weird because you're zoomed in on my camera, but you can see, let's just go here. This is the language arts course, and everything in here, we have videos and all this practice stuff. And for math, I just redid. It's brand new. And I literally have videos for every single, why is it not loading? Let's go here. There we go. I was like, why is this not loading? I have videos for every single thing. And then I go through every single practice test. Questions 1 through 10. Here, let me just move you guys over so you can see. Questions 1 through 10, questions 11 through 20. I go through every single thing so you guys can see what is going on there. So, we have a lot of resources for this exam. Again, I am going through the free study guide today, and the free stuff works. But if you want more, we do have paid products. And in the chat, Yana, my colleague, will give you an offer code. And if you sign up, you'll get 20% off. So if you're in the webinar, like you signed up with your email, you're going to get the offer code in the chat when Yana comes into the webinar. But if you don't have that, you can use the link in the description to sign up, and we'll send it to you. Don't worry trying to find it all. Pay attention to the webinar. You're going to get an email with all of the links and every single thing you could possibly need for this, whether it's the free stuff or the paid stuff. So I'm going to share with you a lot of free things, and I'm also going to share with you some paid things. And in the email, you can decide what you want to do. But I'm here to help you pass this exam. All right. This book is awesome. I will just say, lots of 5-star reviews. I think it beats out Kaplan or any other big testing company. Just saying, this says 2nd edition, but it's actually like the 5th edition because I've redone it so many times to make it better. Okay, let's talk about the elementary education. Somebody's asking about Khan Academy. Sure, Khan Academy is great, but you kind of have to piece together the math and find the skills. Whereas on my products, I go through the exact test specifications. So you're getting the exact math skills in the order that they're assessed on the test. But Khan Academy, I use Khan Academy when I'm confused on something and I need to figure it out to teach it. I go straight to Khan Academy. I actually saw Khan talk at a conference in San Francisco. He's awesome. I love his product. Everything is free with him. So definitely use it, but you kind of have to piece together the skills. Whereas when you buy a book like mine, or a course, it's all there for you laid out in the order and everything that it's in. But it's up to you. You could always piece things together. All right. I love how you guys are all talking to each other in the chat. Definitely help out your fellow colleagues. Let's talk about this particular exam. Now, if you were successful only on some sections of this exam, so let's say you took the exam and you're like, oh, I only got math and social science. That's a win. Any victory on this exam is a win. The overall pass rates for this exam are very low. Most standardized exams, the pass rates are 50%. That's across the board. Okay. They're designed that way. So fewer than 50% of people pass this exam their first time. A lot of people pass some sections. So, if you passed one or more sections, but you didn't get, language arts or whatever, please don't get down on yourself. That is a win. And then for this exam, all you have to do is go back and take those particular sections. So a lot of people ask, do you, should you take the whole thing at once? I do recommend taking the whole thing at once because you could get all or some sections of the exam. Then after that, I would take it one at a time if you're overwhelmed. But I have a lot of people say I'm overwhelmed by the enormity of the test. I would say for your first time, just suck it up, take the whole thing together because you could get one or more sections and then those are out of your life. And then you only have to focus on two or whatever. So after that, if you're too overwhelmed, I would say take them one at a time, but I would just do the whole thing the first time around. All right. Okay. Captions. Somebody's asking about captions. Captions are on. You just have to turn them on. Yana, if you could in the chat, let, I think it's Martell know that she can turn captions on in the screen for our hearing impaired people. Those are turned on the screen inside the webinar. They can do that. All right. So let's get started on this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I am going to be working from the free study guide that came with this. So let me show you what that looks like. Let me, share here. Okay, here we go. So this is that's the paid one. This is the free study guide you got with the sign up. Again, if you want this, all you have to do is click the link in the bio if you are live on TikTok, or you can click the link in the description and you will be able to sign up there and this will be sent to you. This is an abbreviated study guide, but it's still pretty good. I mean, it's got a lot of information. I give you a lot of information, especially on the language arts and reading, because that's a tough one. Lots of practice test questions with very detailed answer explanations. I always say, read the answer explanations, please. Because this is like another chapter in the book. I explain the wrong answers, the correct answers, and it just helps to understand it more. So when you get it right, I want you to read the answer explanations as well, because you might learn something in there. Of course, the math here, more stuff there, lots of very detailed answer explanations. And I do the same in the social science and science. And again, we are going to be working on this together. So don't worry about downloading it. You can download it later. The paid study guide is much more complex. And as you can see, it's got, let me go here. It has, how big is this one? 519 pages. And the thing that I love about the paid study guide is that I have 10 practice test questions after every single section. So for example, foundational skills here. This is a whole foundational skills section. And then I make sure to give you some very specific questions just on foundational skills. All right. Now, on top of that, I have 3 practice tests, full practice tests at the end of each section. There are hundreds of practice test questions. But what I caution people about all the time is stop focusing on practice test questions. Focus on the content. All of this information, and I have so much information in here. Let me just close out. This is really important in terms of teaching reading. If you try to just memorize practice test questions and you don't really understand what a morphological analysis is, what is the difference between phonics and phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, you are not going to be able to navigate the practice test questions. I want you to have an understanding of this information so well that regardless of, how you get the information, you are able to navigate it. So that's really, really important. Okay. All right. So let's go back to, and let me just, I think we are here. Okay. Let's go to the actual test. Let's talk about this. All right. Let's see. I just want to make sure that, okay. So there are 4 subtests to this giant exam. We have the 5002, which is the reading and language arts. Then we have the 5003, which is the math. Most people find these 2 to be the hardest. First of all, the math, like I said before, has got a lot of tough math questions. And it's a difficult math exam. I remember doing math with my daughter in 5th grade, and I was like, I cannot believe this is 5th grade math. The stuff that they are doing now is way harder than it ever was. I'm Gen X. So in the 80s, I was in 5th grade or whatever. We were not doing algebra at the level that they're doing now in 5th grade. So this is not an easy exam, especially if you're, quote, not a math person. But I challenge you not to say I'm not a math person, only because, that's negative self-talk. And also it's not true. You are a math person. You probably were just more successful in the 5002 or in the language arts part of your life. When we're successful at things, we think like, oh, I'm a language arts person, or I'm a math person, not a language arts person. It's just not true. You can be both things. So I challenge you to not say those things about yourself. I'm not good at math. When you do that, it's very, it breaks you down. You are good at math. You just need more practice. No big deal. And then the social studies and the science, this is more just like memorizing content. You've got in the social studies, U.S. history, everything from indigenous nations to colonialism to slavery to transatlantic slave trade to the starting of the colonies, the Boston Tea Party, all this stuff that you may or may not haven't seen in a really long time. And then the science, there are 3. We're going to go through this: earth, space, physical, and life science. And a lot of that is just kind of memorizing some of this content that you may not have seen in a while. So let's go through the 5002 first. Again, this is arguably one of our most difficult. I'm just going to check one thing here and see. Okay, we'll see if that works there. Hopefully you guys can see me on TikTok. I'm trying to go live on TikTok too. So anyways, it hasn't been working out real well. All right. So for the 5002, there are 2 main sections: reading, which is 38 questions. And that's all about the foundations of reading. So phonemic awareness, phonics, phonological awareness, all that. And then writing, speaking, and listening is all together. You can see that it's pretty split evenly 50-50, but there's a lot on the foundational skills of reading. So let's talk about that really quick. Foundational skills. And again, I go through this much more in depth in our online course, but I'm going to give you a crash course really quickly here. We have phonological and phonemic awareness. These have to do with sounds only in words. This is the very beginning when we're asking students, how many sounds in the word bat? And they go, bat. 3 sounds, just the sounds. You're not looking at the word. You're only focusing on the sounds. Next comes phonics, where we're decoding words. We're actually looking at the words. And we see, in, like, I always use this word make. In the word make, the A is long because it's followed by a consonant and a silent E. In English, those are our codes in words. And so that's how we understand them. That's a phonics. Fluency is reading a string of words together in sentences or passages and having automaticity, prosody, and accuracy, right? You have to be able to move through a passage in order to move towards comprehension, because without comprehension, you're not going to understand. But without fluency, I'm sure you've heard it. You watch a kid read a passage and they're stopping to sound out every word. It's so exhausting, isn't it? Because they're using all of their cognitive energy on sounding out the words. And it's so like, oh my God, you want to help the kid out, And because they're using all their cognitive energy on sounding out the words, there's no room for comprehension, right? So we want fluency to be like that automatic reading. And we do that through repeated reading, choral reading, just fluency practice, things like that. Then we get to comprehension. That's when we start building pictures in our brains. This is the higher order critical thinking part. You're predicting, you're summarizing, you're trying to figure out what's going on in the story or in the informational text, okay? And then we have what we call metacognition. This is really important when we're thinking about thinking. Metacognition is understanding the processes in our brains. Now, as adults, we're like, oh, sure, I'm going to sound out this word. I'm going to use my morphology. I'm going to read around the word to figure out, its meaning. Because we're adults, we have practiced those processes. But little kids, we have to show them those processes. We have to bring that to their attention. So we are always working on that metacognition. We might think aloud and say, this word I don't understand, but the sentence after it says this, that makes me think. And you know how you do that as a teacher? That's building up that metacognition, thinking about thinking. All right. Now let's think like a test maker and work backwards on some of these really difficult questions that you'll see in the language arts and reading. So this is coming from page 8 of the study guide. So if you do have the study guide in front of you, your free study guide that came with this, then check it out. If not, just watch this. You can download it later and look at it later. I'm not going to do every question in that study guide because we'd be here all day. I'm going to do a little bit and then you can do some on your own. Again, if you're watching me on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm pretty much everywhere right now. Link in the description or link in bio will take you to a sign up page for this and you can download the study guide there. All right. So I always like to work backwards, think like a test maker, work backwards. And I can see I just have these kind of one word answers. So I can't eliminate anything and I can't zero in on anything yet. But I know that I'm looking at skills and I'm probably going to have to pick out each skill. Now let's continue to work backwards. Let's just have a look at these bullets. Teach students to break words down by individual sounds. Teach students to focus on sounds. Sounds. Well, this is phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness and phonological awareness, like we said back here, are the first skills in teaching students to read. They're part of the Fab Five of reading. And you can do this in the dark. You do not have to see the word to do it. I could do a whole phonemic awareness activity with you right now without ever writing down a word. I want you to focus on the sounds only. It's a foundational skill of reading. Now, decoding and phonics are the same. I could cross those off right away because if I'm looking for only one correct answer choice, decoding and phonics, those are the same skills. Structural analysis is also in the phonics zone. So if I were really thinking like a test maker and I knew these skills so well, I would know that I could cross off B, C, and D without ever reading the question. And I would zero in on A, and then I could see, hey, yep, we got sounds and sounds here. This is phonemic awareness. So decoding is when we look at a word and we decode it. So for example, in the word phone, if I know the P and the H together make a F sound, letter sound correspondence, I have to see the letter in order to assign a sound. Then I know this O is long, O, because it's followed by a consonant and a silent E. That's decoding. That's phonics. And it could arguably be a structural analysis. Typically, a structural analysis goes with morphology, where you are, taking apart words. So for example, like in the word unbelievable, unbelievable, you might break them up by prefixes, suffixes, and roots and examine the word. That's a structural analysis or a morphological analysis. Okay. And we go over a lot more in the book, and I have lots of videos on that. All right, let's go to the second part, the reading, literature, and informational text. Big thing to understand about this part of the exam is that informational text is very important, and so is literary text, and we read them differently. Informational text is your social studies and your science text. If you are teaching social studies and science, that is an opportunity for reading and writing. That's an opportunity to expose students to primary and secondary sources. We start them off young in this area because we want to make sure that they know where to get information, how to read that information, and how to tell whether that information is reliable. And then literary text, we're constantly evaluating poetry and story, characterization. All of that is really important. And as we do that, we're going to focus on text structure. Is it expository? Is it narrative? Is it argumentative? text features, headings, graphs, quotes, anything in there that you can see. This is a big one. This has to do with critical thinking, comparing multiple texts, taking two texts, maybe a poem and like even an informational text. Maybe you're reading about Native American cultures and you have a piece of informational text and then you have a poem and you're comparing those things. That's really awesome to do. High level. And we want to start that at a young age. Text to self. This is why having literature in your classroom that represents all students, regardless of gender, gender, race, ethnicity, all of it is very important. That's why we need to make sure our libraries are robust with lots of different types of books so that everybody can see themselves represented in these texts. And text to self is very, very important in building good readers. And then, of course, evidence-based discussion. These are all good words. If you see these words in an answer choice, you're going to want to zero in on those because it's probably the correct answer. Evidence-based discussion means that when a student is discussing, they are picking in the story or in the informational text where they got the answer. So for example, student might say, oh, the girl was sad because she couldn't find her dog or something. I'm giving you like a really dumb example here. And you as a teacher might say, oh, that's interesting. Where did you find that information? And the student might say, oh, it's right here in this paragraph. And I might say, okay, can you read that part aloud for us? And the student reads it aloud and you say, oh, I can see why that would bring you to that conclusion. That evidence-based discussion is the basis for citing sources, using sources to argue your points. Very important skill. So if you see text-based discussion or evidence-based discussion in an answer choice, it's probably your answer there. Okay. All right. So let's have a look here. Let's have a look at number 7. Let's read the answer choices first. We are going to be zeroing in on good words and negating bad words. We're going to think like a test maker and work backwards. Here we go. Allow students to partner up and read text with a buddy. Now, if I am a new teacher, I might see this and go, oh yeah, that looks good. And it does. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It doesn't have all the good words I'm looking for. So I'm not going to cross it off, but I am going to keep it. B, reward the student with extra time in the computer lab for finishing the reading. Now, do we do this? Yes, we certainly do. We will often reward students with extra time, homework passes, candy. And does it work? Yes, it does. However, we want to make sure that we are using intrinsic rewards when it comes to reading. We don't, a lot of people use these parties and things like that. And that doesn't really work. It leaves students out and it doesn't really foster good reading skills. I will cross off anything on this exam with extrinsic rewards. Now, in real life, a cookie, a piece of candy, extra time on the playground works wonderfully. Highly recommend, but it's unsustainable. You can't keep doing it because students will get sick of it and they'll want to do something else, okay? All right. C, require the students to finish reading for homework. Homework, bad word on this exam, crossing it off right away. I'm not saying homework is a bad word in general. On this exam, it's a bad word, okay? D, allow the students to self-select books, love that word, from a standards-aligned group of informational texts. Good word, good word, good word. D, I'm circling all day because I have self-select books, which means you're allowing students to choose what they want to read, which fosters good reading habits. And standards aligned, oh yes. This is a state standardized assessment. They want to know that you're using the state standards. They'll throw in standards aligned a lot. If you see it in an answer choice, 99.99999% of the time, it is the correct answer. So D looks great. It is the correct answer, and I didn't even have to read the question, but let's read the question just to see. A teacher notices a few students are not motivated to read the current selection of a piece of informational text. What can the teacher do to motivate students to engage in the reading? All right, you might say, well, extra time would motivate them. It sure would. However, or extra time on the playground, I should say, not extra time in reading, extra time in the computer lab or extra time on the playground might reward them, right? Might motivate them. However, they're testing your intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards and your understanding that when it comes to reading, when it comes to school, we want students to be intrinsically motivated and self-selecting books and allowing students to choose what they read from a set of standards aligned books, right? We don't want them just kind of going all, I mean, I don't really care what they're reading, to be honest. I was a reading teacher in high school. I had struggling students who struggled to read in high school. I didn't care what they were reading. I just wanted them to read, but these were 15 to 18-year-old kids, so it's a little different. But I remember when I was a young student in kindergarten, there was a book I wanted so badly. It was a big, thick book, and it was like 3 grade levels ahead. And I didn't have the skills to read it, but I wanted it. I wanted to read it so bad. I wanted to hold it. I just thought it was like the coolest book. And my kindergarten teacher gave it to me. And I couldn't read it, but she still gave it to me. Who cares? You know, I wanted the book. Why restrict books? I never understood restricting books. I don't get it. Let everybody read all the things. All right. So that's the best one. D, it's got all the good words. All right. Let's go into writing, speaking, and listening. So for this part of the exam, you're going to need to focus on the writing process. So that's going to be pre-writing, drafting, peer review, you know, the whole writing process. Audience awareness. This is a big one. This is a good word. Being aware of audience and purpose is really important when it comes to writing. There will be a little bit of grammar and mechanics here. Things like semicolons, independent clauses versus dependent clauses. I have it all in the book. Probably 1 to 2 questions on that, not a lot. And then presentation skills. This part, the writing process here is a big part of this part of the exam. These last 2, like speaking and listening, they're less prominent, but you'll still have some questions. Let's have a look here. All right. So lots of big answer choices here. Again, a lot of you would start up here, work backwards, think like a test maker. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that we are going down here. All right. I can see these quotations. So this has to do with somebody saying something. A, you use the term American alligator a lot. Try combining sentences to give the paragraph varied language. Okay. I like the word varied language. This sounds like a feedback response to me. There is nothing positive in this feedback. Remember, when it comes to feedback, we want to kick a little and we want to praise a little. I was taught that as a coach. You got to praise more than you kick. Otherwise, they get unmotivated, right? So here, we're just kind of kicking. We're saying, you use this too much, try doing this, right? And then we have the next one. Good job. Keep up the great work. I don't like this one because it's just good job, keep up the great work. It's too vague. What we want is specific and meaningful feedback. We don't want just general stuff here. Okay. So that is not good. What did I do well? Tell me what I did well so I can do it again. All right. C, consider using a closing statement at the end. Okay. A little more specific, but it's not as good. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'll leave it. D, your writing does a great job describing your knowledge about the American alligator. Consider deleting sentence 4 so it doesn't take away from your overall theme. D is good. Very good. It's got all the good practices in it. First of all, it's specific on what I did right. And it's specific on what I can do to make it better. There's a little bit of positive and there's a little bit of critical in there. So D is the best answer. And I don't even have to read all this. What happens is you're going to read all this, then you're going to read this, then you're going to read the answer choices, then you're going to have to go back up and read this again. Don't do that. Work backwards. Think like a test maker, not a test taker, and you will do better on this exam. All right. All right, let's have a look at 5003. Some of you are here for math. So let's talk about the math. Let me know in the chat that everything is going okay. Looks like somebody's computer screen froze, but it looks like we are good. Let me know that everything is going okay. You can hear me, see me before we move into the math. I just got I got a couple of extra screens so I can see more of what's going on. So I can see you guys in the corner of my eye, and I'm trying to get into the conversation with you because I have ADHD so bad. So let me know in the chat that you can see me and hear me. All right. All right. Let's talk about the 5003 there. All right, Nada, thank you so much. Numbers and operations. That's the first part of the math, then algebraic thinking, and then geometry, measurement, probability, data, and stats. Okay. All right. So here's the thing about math exams. all math exams. This one, middle school, high school, ACT, SAT, they all cover the same stuff. Now, as you get up in the grades, there might be a fourth or fifth section on, trigonometry or calculus, but all math exams have numbers and operations. That's going to be things like place value, proportions, ratios, rates, things like that, word problems, real world word problems, that mental math you do, percentages, things like that. Algebraic thinking, so that's going to be your algebra, solving for X and stuff like that. And then geometry, obviously your shapes, perimeter, area, all of that. And then data probability and stats, being able to look at graphs, being able to interpret graphs and data. And then of course, probability, things like if you have 8 socks in a sock drawer, 3 are green, 2 are blue, whatever is red, what's the probability of choosing a green one, that kind of thing. And I'm going to show you how to do some of that today. But this is all kind of assessed the same way. If you look at the ACT, their math is laid out this way too. They have some trig at the end, but it's all the same stuff, guys. So even if you're running out of practice, if you've used my book and you've done all the math, go do the ACT. First 20 problems or so of the ACT will help you with this as well, okay? Christina, I used to hate math, subbed and taught 6th grade math for 2 years. This year I'm teaching high school math. Christina, oh my God, same thing here. I thought I wasn't strong in math until I started my company and I had to teach math. And I became like an awesome math person. Another thing, I hated biology in high school. I thought I was the worst at biology. The only job open when I became a permanent substitute was bio. The guy retired and I stepped in, fell in love with biology. It's by far one of my favorite subjects now. I was learning it right along with the kids. And so we were like, I didn't tell them that, but we were learning it together. So the way I explained it was so much easier for them. And that my scores with all of my kids were so great because I was like explaining the way I was figuring it out and they got it. It was such a great year, that first year of biology, because I just fell in love with that subject. So, Christina, I get it. And Hannah, I still hate math. Let's try. And Ashley, math is my low point. Let's try to move that into a different line of thinking and say, math is not my high point yet. Because if you can do this along with me today, you can do math. It's just you've been more successful in other things. And you can do math. The greatest artists and writers in the ancient world were mathematicians also. They were artists, they were writers, and they were mathematicians. So you don't have a math brain or a reading brain. You have both brains, okay? Growth mindset. Yes, Christina, growth mindset. All right, let me get started on this. So let's have a look. For the numbers and operations, this is going to be place value, order of operations, PEMDAS, exponents, fractions, decimal, percents, and proportions. Numbers and operations is a big one, and it's usually assessed throughout all the questions. So even if it's like let's say it's an algebra question, there will probably be some sort of numbers and operations. There'll be some sort of PEMDAS in there or something else, okay? Let's go here. All right, this one is I can see right away the word rate stands out for me. So this is a proportion. I'm going to look at my answer choices because I'm thinking like a test maker here. And I can see I have all whole numbers, no decimals, no fractions. Okay, so I'm going to have to solve this. Let's read the question stem. At this rate, how many sandwiches can he make in a 4-hour shift? So right away, I'm thinking proportion in my mind because I have the word rate. Let's have a look. Ryan works at a sandwich shop and can make 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes. At this rate, how many sandwiches can he make in his 4-hour shift? All right, I have a few things going on here. First of all, I have a proportion. So I'm going to set 2 fractions equal to one another. I know this by the rate. I also know this by the fact that I have 3 things out of the 4 things I need to understand this, right? I have how many sandwiches he can make in 50 minutes. How many can he make in a 4-hour shift? I have 3 things. I need that 4th thing, which is how many sandwiches. So what I'm going to do is make it matchy-matchy. Sandwiches over minutes equals sandwiches over minutes. I like to say that, matchy-matchy. Whatever I put on the top on one side has to be on the top on the other side, okay? Sandwiches over minutes equals sandwiches over minutes, all right? So if I read this, I can do 30, or Ryan can do 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes. Let me get my calculator out. You do get a calculator on this exam, but it's on the screen. So I recommend pulling up that on-screen calculator. You can pull up on your computer and practice that way, because you have to like use the mouse and punch the numbers. So just be careful. So I have 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes. And at this rate, how many sandwiches? So how many sandwiches? We don't know. That's going to become X in a 4-hour shift. Well, I'm doing minutes here. I'm not doing hours. So 4 times 60 equals 240. So I have to convert. So there's a lot going on here. I got a proportion. I have to solve for X, and I have to convert the 4-hour shift to minutes. Now, I could have done this sandwiches over hours equals sandwiches over hours, but then I would have gotten a decimal for this 50 minutes. I would have had to convert the 50 minutes to hours. And for me, it's just easier for me to do it from minutes or from hours to minutes like I did here. Now, there's 2 ways you can move on from here. You can divide 240 by 50 and then multiply the 35 times that. So let's do that first. Let's just say, how many times does 50 go into 240? So 240 divided by 50, and that equals 4.8. All right. So I need to multiply 35 by 4.8, and that should give me X. So when I multiply that 35 by 4.8, I get 168A. Okay. That's a little shortcut. Let's go through the way it's supposed to be done. So let me erase this so we have room. This is how I always do it. I don't like shortcuts because I feel like when I make shortcuts, sometimes, especially on things like that, sandwiches over minutes. Give me a second. Sandwiches over minutes equals sandwiches over minutes. I can do 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes. How many sandwiches can I make in 240 minutes? What I like to do is cross multiply and solve. It's a little bit longer, but people are like, you don't have to do all that. And it's like, most people come to me because they're having a problem with math. So I don't like to do too many shortcuts. So, it's always helpful to do the shortcut, but I also like to show you why things are the way they are, because a lot of people want to know why. So when you multiply 35 times 240, it's a big number. It is 840. I'm sorry, it's 8,400. And 50 times X is 50X. So solve for X, divide by 50 using algebra, divide by 50. And when I do, I get X equals 168. So both ways get you to 168 here. Okay. But it just depends on what you're more comfortable with. You can figure out how many times 50 goes into 240, and then you would do the same up here, or you can cross multiply and solve for X. It just depends. Okay. All right. I go too fast sometimes. I got this one wrong on my first try and then worked it out again and got it right. All right, Daniel. Yes, you're like me. I want to move as quickly through the test as I possibly can. And what happens when we do that is we sometimes we miss the not questions. You know how they have like, which of the following is not the correct answer? And I move really fast and those get me because I'm not slowing down. What I recommend doing for pretty much every math question is just reread the question stem, making sure you're correct. And again, if you don't get an answer that's in the answer choices, that's a problem, right? But also, they will have like your mistakes in the answer choices. So I have to be careful. And I'm going to show you that in a second. All right. Algebraic thinking. Now we're moving into algebra. Most people who don't like math hate algebra, but if you practice it, it becomes much easier and you'll realize you do kind of use it a lot in life. You're just moving things around and solving for unknown quantities, right? All right. So, and again, notice this question. It was a number sense question. It was a proportions question. It was also an algebra question. It was a conversion because we had to convert. So they're testing 3 or 4 things inside of one word problem, right? All right, so let's go to this is just like a standard algebra question here, okay? Now you could get a word problem, you could get a problem like this. I don't know how it's gonna end up, but this is one that you might see on the exam, all right? So evaluate the equation for b equals -4. So what does that mean? Anywhere where I see a b, I'm going to put in a -4. Now notice all the negatives happening here. They do this on purpose. They want you to understand how to keep those negatives straight, because you're going to be multiplying by a negative. You're going to be doing all of this stuff, and you're going to mess up your negatives. Okay. So everywhere where I see a B, I'm putting a -4. So let's rewrite it. -4, because there's a B there, squared minus 3 times -4. Be careful. So this is a PEMDAS question as well. So this also gets your number sense. And I'll show you why this is important. PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, whichever comes first, adding and subtracting, whichever comes first, okay? So parentheses, we do have parentheses here, but when we say parentheses with PEMDAS, they're usually talking about like an operation inside the parentheses, something like that, where you would do 4 minus 3 first, and that would be 1. Okay, in this case, we just have parentheses kind of bracketing off information, but still important to pay attention to. The next one is exponents. Now, you might be tempted to distribute this negative here. That's multiplication. That's multiplying by a -1. And you'd be jumping a step. We need to be at exponents here. So let's do the exponents first. -4 squared is -4 times -4, which is positive 16, right? But what do I have here? I have this negative. I need to bring that down. Careful. Now let's do this one. We're on multiplication. We can go -3 times -4 is a positive 12. So this is -16, because now I can bring that through, plus 12. This is a -4. B. Now, let's say I jumped the gun. Let's say I went, let's say for this section here, I decided that I was going to, let me do this here. Let me just do it all over there. Okay. Let's say that I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and distribute that because it's just hanging out there. Why don't I do that? Okay, cool. So it's a 4 squared. That becomes 16 plus 12. What is that? 28. A much different answer than -4. And notice D has my mistake there. That if you pick D, you would be incorrect because you went to multiplication before we went to exponents, all right? The proper way would be to do the exponent first. So we have -4 times -4 is 16. Then we bring that negative down. -16 plus 12 equals -4B is the correct answer. Good math writers, people who write math tests really well, will anticipate your mistakes, especially in orders of operations in PEMDAS. So be on the lookout for that. All right. And geometry, measurement, and data. This is like all kinds of stuff smushed into one area. We've got 1, 2, and 3-dimensional figures. Even just identifying them, you're going to have to find perimeter, area, volume, circumference. Yes, there you might have some circle questions on there, which can make people get a little bit of agita if you haven't seen that. Units of measure, central tendency, mean, median, and mode. This is not explicitly stated in the test specifications, but I recommend looking it over in my book because it's there. It's on the exam. Graphs, charts, and table, probability, and again, proportions. Proportions are everywhere because you might have like similar figures. You might have 2 triangles that they say are similar. You have to use proportions to solve it. So again, a number sense skill inside of a proportion or inside of a geometry question. All right, let's have a look at this. 8. We have right here, I can see 7 inches, 14 inches, 21, 28. And I can see they're all in, if I'm just thinking like a test maker, they're all in 7s, in intervals of 7. 7 plus 7 is 14, 21, 28, just something to think about. What is the perimeter of a square with an area of 49 square inches? All right, so I like to draw things out, but you may be able to do this right off the top of your head. That's fine. What we're actually looking at is the square root of 49, right? And the square root of 49 is 7. So that means each one of these is 7, right? If I didn't want to do the square root and I knew the area was 49, base times height is 49, and a square is all of the sides are equal. So it would be 7. There's lots of ways to get to this. All right. Now be careful. We're not finding the area, we're finding the perimeter. We add all of these up, or we could do 4 times 7 because there's 4 sides with a length of 7, and that gives us 28 inches D. And some of you put that in there. All right. I see people are asking about scratch paper. You do get like a dry erase thingy. Sometimes you get scratch paper while you're in there. But it just depends. But you will get some sort of scratch paper. You get it for this, and you get it for every section. I believe you have it for everything. No shame in drawing it out, Christina. Absolutely no shame. I draw everything out. I'm visual when it comes to math. So for sure, drawing it out is a great way to do that. All right, and let's try one more. This one seems hard when you look at it, but it's really not. You will get something like this on the exam. So I can see in my answer choices, again, I'm looking at whole numbers, no decimals, no fractions or anything like this. All right, and then let's read the questions. How many more combinations of meals will our customers be able to get with the new ones? How many more combinations? All right, we're looking at combinations. So some people like to draw this whole thing out, but here's a quick tip. So we have Ellie's food truck currently serves 4 main dishes and 3 side dishes. And each meal you get 1 main dish and 1 side. Next week, she's adding a main dish and 2 sides to the menu. How many more combinations of meals will her new menu give the customers? All right. So we need to figure out how many total combinations can you get on the old menu and how many combinations can you get on the new menu? And then we have to find out the difference. All right. Here's all you have to do. For the old menu, you have 4 mains and 3 sides, 4 times 3. You have 12 possible combinations based on the menu items. Okay. Now, if you add a main dish, this 4 becomes a 5, right? And you add 2 sides, this 3 becomes a 5, right? Now you have 5 times 5 for a total of 25. We subtract the 12 from the 25 and we get 13 more combinations. Okay. I see Hannah says, I hate these questions. I know, because you're thinking like, let me think about the menu. And okay, if I get a main and a side, and you're trying to draw it out, all you have to do is take 4 times 3. There are 4 main dishes and you have an option of 3 sides. Multiply them together. That's 12 options. If you add a main, now you have 5 main dishes, and you add 2 sides. Now you have 5 sides. Now it's 5 times 5, 25. Be careful. Notice D here. You're moving fast. Like Daniel said, I move too fast. And I do this too. You didn't go all the way to the end. You go up 25. Now it's 25. It's not. It says how many more combinations of meals will her new menu give her customers? They get 13 more options, basically 13 more combinations with the new addition. So be careful. Read that question stem. Just have a look at it one more time to make sure, because notice they anticipate that mistake. Or I should say, I anticipate that mistake because I wrote this question. So I knew you would probably be working fast and move through it. All right, let's keep moving through. I'm checking out the chat here. Good job, guys. I hate these questions. Wow, tricky, nice. Yes, you got to think like a test maker, Leslie. Yes, indeed, you do. All right, let's talk about the 5004. So this is all about social studies. So you're going to have U.S. history. This is the heaviest part. U.S. history, government, citizenship at 45%. Geography, anthropology, and sociology. So you will have some stuff in there on anthropology and sociology. It's heavy on the geography, but you will have stuff about societies and how people use the land and things like that. And that's going to be 30%. And then we have econ and world history together, and that's 25%. Now, it is an elementary education exam. So it's not going to go in depth on some of these like a middle or high school one would. I'm currently writing a high school social studies book for the new 5581. It's a brand new social studies exam for the high school social studies teachers. It is really specific. This one is more of an overview. You still have to know stuff. And here's the thing. I don't know what questions you could get any number of these questions. Like U.S. history spans since the beginning of the Americas, right? World history is everything from the ancient world, the Paleolithic era, all the way up to like today. The best thing that you can do for these types of questions is think about time. Think about those timelines in your head. A lot of times they'll ask you a question, and if you can understand that some of the answer choices happen too early or too late, you can get rid of them, right? So think about your timelines, think about your overarching themes, and it'll help you. But again, people a lot of times get mad about social studies and they say, I didn't see a lot of the questions that you had in your book on the exam. Well, I guarantee there were questions on the American Revolution. I guarantee there were questions on the Civil War. I guarantee there were questions on the founding documents. They may not have been presented exactly the way I said, but you have to know the concept. So no matter what way they're asked, you know the answer. So really think about the timelines, okay? Someone's asking if I've gotten to science yet. Not yet. It's at the end. It's after this, okay? Social studies was so hard for me. I failed the first one. That's okay, Vanessa. You just have to keep going. Steph is saying, I have test anxiety. So this information hopefully will help me. Okay. I just did a video on test anxiety, Steph. Try to focus on the process and not so much the outcome. I'll talk more about that when we're done with this, but I do have a video. We'll link it up in the email that goes out today. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, obviously. I have my own anxieties about things, but there is a way to kind of help. And so we'll talk about that at the end, okay? You're not alone on that. All right, let's talk about U.S. history, government, and citizenship. So we have European exploration. When the Europeans came here on boats, why did they come here? What did they do? Then later, the American Revolution, breaking away from the British. What did they do? Why did they do it? What was the result? Major events. After that, we had the Civil War. Before that, we had westward expansion. And we had so many other things. We had the Louisiana Purchase. We had Lewis and Clark. We had the War of 1812. So there's a lot going on here. Key documents, Declaration of Independence, Constitution. This should say Federalist Papers. I apologize. That was a typo. Feudalist Papers is not a thing. Federalist. Sorry. Branches of government, both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And then, of course, citizens' responsibilities. All right, let's have a look at a question here. Now, again, this is random. If you haven't thought about the Louisiana Purchase in 20 years, this one might be hard for you, okay? But let's have a look and just think like a test maker on this, okay? Following the Louisiana Purchase, Thomas Jefferson ordered which of the following tasks to be completed? All right, so we would need to understand, and this is in the book, that the Louisiana Purchase is when the colonists, I say we because I'm from European descent, but the colonists basically were setting up governments and things like that. And they purchased this whole area called the Louisiana Purchase, which was all the way down from Louisiana, all the way up to Canada, and kind of over through the middle of the country, middle of what is now the United States. And it was hailed as this wonderful thing because we bought it for $15 million, which is a steal if you're thinking about the amount of land we got. And they say, quote, there was no bloodshed, there was no war. And they're very, very happy about that, right? But the problem is there was a lot of bloodshed. The Louisiana Purchase meant that we were moving westward and we were displacing millions of indigenous peoples. And so, we tout it as, oh, there was no war. We just got the land. We just acquired it. No. We were displacing Native Americans. There was bloodshed in that realm, and we were moving westward. Now, we can argue whether it was good or not. There are good things about it and bad things about it. But just think about that. We are now moving westward. And what was the next thing that Thomas Jefferson ordered? Now, you might think about the Indian removal process, but the Indian removal process was Andrew Jackson. He was kind of the villain in that whole situation. Reconstruction of the southern states, we know, is the Civil War. Remember, you're not going to know exactly what's going on, but if you can have like a timeline in your head and know that Reconstruction is attached to the Civil War, not the Louisiana Purchase, okay? Exploration of the new territory, This is manifest destiny. This is moving westward. This is Lois and Clark. All right. So just to get more specific here, notice how it's a little more general here, but we're talking about, we got the Louisiana Purchase. Now what do? We have to figure out what's out there. So Thomas Jefferson sent Lois and Clark out to explore the new territory and figure out what we can do to kind of build and move and maximize our success out there. And so C is correct. Notice it's a little vague. It's the Lewis and Clark expedition. And then D, initiation of the first U.S. Census. That comes way later. We're still in the like settler times. We're trying to settle this area and, you know, all of that. So C is the best answer. But notice, if I had an understanding of bigger ideas here, I know that this is Andrew Jackson, this is Civil War, this is definitely Louisiana Purchase, and this is way later. All right. So even if you don't know the specifics, you can still find this. Okay. Every time I think about displacement of Native Americans, I get so upset. Yes, Melanie, I am writing a new book on this and I'm diving deep into that. And it is very upsetting, very upsetting. Christina, my sister is not in education and she loves the videos too. My kids watch too. Oh, that's awesome. Kathleen, study guide and then use ETS resources. Yes. So someone's talking about using my study guide with the ETS resources. Yes. ETS is who makes this exam. I write all my questions based on their test specifications and blueprints. So I use their document. Every testing company does a document that shows what is on the exam. I use that as like my Bible when I write the books and the stuff. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying the videos. I have a YouTube channel with lots of stuff and I'll be doing more social studies videos because I'm writing this book. Although doing social studies makes me nervous with the way the country is right now. I get a lot of hate in the comments whenever I bring up like colonization. They're like, that's not true. And I'm like, yes, it is true. And if you don't think so, you can start your own YouTube channel and talk to whoever wants to believe your nonsense. So anyway, I'll be doing more videos on that. All right, let's get into geography, anthropology, and sociology. So we've got, you know, stuff that you may not remember, like, you know, what is an isthmus and, you know, mountain regions and things, or mountain ranges and things like that. You may not have remembered that. This one's sort of easy. This is latitude and longitude. Using the map, which country is at 60 degrees north, 120 degrees west. So here's 60 degrees north, 120 degrees west. If we are using latitude and longitude, like we did back in 5th grade or 2nd grade, I don't even know, we would see that this is where we would end up, and that is Russia. Now, this is an easy one, but I just wanted to show you that there are some gimmies here. There are some good ones here, like easy, low-hanging fruit, and there are some that are more difficult. Here's the thing. Answer every question. Grab the ones that you can easily, and then spend a little bit more time on the harder ones. I don't recommend skipping around and not answering. I think you should answer everything in order. That's how I do it, because if you run out of time and you skipped some, it's better to have guessed and answered rather than leave it blank, right? But you could flag anyone that you feel you don't understand, and you can, you know, go back to it. But just be careful with all that. I like to answer in order and only flag a couple, because some of you have such big test anxiety, you'll flag every single question. And then, you know, if everything's flagged, then nothing is flagged, right? If everything is highlighted, then nothing is highlighted. So just be careful. But this one's an easy one, low-hanging fruit, grab it and move on. World history and economics, we've got ancient civilizations, developments in the 20th century. It goes everything from ancient civilizations to like the space race. You know, cross-cultural comparisons, econ, supply and demand. It's going to be basic econ. It's in the book. Just have a basic understanding. And then, of course, populations, resources, impact, stuff like that. Here we go. Which of the following civilizations was the first to use irrigation? All right. Now, again, you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't know any of this. Well, it is in the book. So you want to make sure you look at the book. But one thing that I want you to understand about ancient civilization is that Mesopotamia is discussed a lot. All right. Let me go back to this. We can use this, this map here to talk about Mesopotamia. Let me zoom in even more. Can I zoom in? Nope. That's as far as I can zoom in. All right. Mesopotamia is, and again, it's not going to be perfect, but it was right here. It's called the Fertile Crescent. and it is the cradle of civilization. This is where it all started. And this is where farming and irrigation happened. Now, I see some people are saying Egypt. Egypt is known for its complex irrigation systems because they were on the Nile, but Mesopotamia did it first. They were the first ones to do irrigation. Egypt came in and made it fancy. All right. And did a better job at it, but Mesopotamia did it first. Okay. So now I have seen it a couple of different ways. You probably will not see the two together. I put them together here because I wanted it to be a little bit more complex. Egypt did have complex irrigation systems, but Mesopotamia did it first. They learned how to get the water to the crops. That's why it was called the Fertile Crescent. They were able to grow food. This is when we stopped being like wanderers for food and we like settled into our like little cities. Well, they weren't cities, but little villages, and were able to stay and grow food and hunt and bring it back and become like little societies. Okay. And then of course, Egypt being on the Nile, they really amped it up with its irrigation. Okay. So that's that. Let's talk about science. We're almost done. You guys are doing good. What time is it? All right. I am on time. I only want to do this for an hour and a half. This is a big test. Normally mine only go for an hour, but this is big test. All right. 5:05. This is the science. Every single science exam from elementary all the way up to high school and beyond has the same stuff in it. It just depends on how nuanced it is. You're always going to have Earth space. That's going to be the sun, the moon, the Earth, the solar system, the galaxies, stars, and all that. Also, the lithosphere. Hang on. The lithosphere, you know, what's happening on top of the Earth, the atmosphere, things like that. So that is all Earth space. Now, as you move up in the grades, it gets more complex. So just remember that. Life science is biology. Now, as you move up in the grades, you're going to have microbiology, marine biology, you know, it gets dissected down. In this particular exam, it's just more general. And then we have physical science. This is going to be your chemistry, your physics, things like that, your periodic table, small machines, stuff like that. All right. So let's have a look at Earth science. So I told you Earth, moon, sun, stars, Earth systems, Earth spheres, Earth's crust, and inquiry is a good word on any scenario questions you would get on this exam. Okay. So for example, what is the most important skill a student can have in science? Or what is the most important thing a student can possess in science? Inquiry. We want to make students curious. That's how they understand science. They ask questions. They wonder why something is the way it is. And that's how they do experiments. That's why they present questions and things like that. Okay. All right. Let's have a look at the first one. This is Earth space. So I've got a diagram here. You can see there's a lot of rain and water going on. The picture is an example of, now I have precipitation, transpiration, evaporation, infiltration. This is all water. Water is the hydrosphere. Okay, let's talk about these different spheres just so you know the difference in it. Geosphere is like the rock in the earth, right? Whether it's a metamorphic rock, an igneous rock, a sedimentary rock, what's happening in the earth's layers. That's the geosphere. The hydrosphere is all the water, whether it's up in the air in the clouds or down in the lakes and the rivers, it's all the water going on. The cryosphere is all the ice. So your glaciers, your ice caps, things like that. And the biosphere is anything living, anywhere where there are living organisms, you know? So now they all work together to make the very complex and wonderful, amazing Earth, but this is how they're kind of broken up in science. Okay. So this would be the hydrosphere. And again, even if you didn't know this, you're seeing water, hydro. Okay. If it's obvious, it's the answer. They know you do not have a PhD in Earth space science. You got to go with the obvious. It never is, oh, that's too obvious. That can't be the answer. Quite the opposite. The more obvious it is, it's the answer. Go with it. All right, life science, my favorite, and I think Christina and I were talking about this. I hated biology, and then I became a biology teacher. Now I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Cell theory, parts of a cell, human systems, interdependence, life cycles, and of course, again, inquiry. This is going to be everything from the cell and even inside the cell, the DNA, like the tiniest little things of our lives, zooming all the way out to ecosystems and like the earth, the biosphere, the whole thing. So that's what's so cool about it. We have the smallest unit of life, the cell, and then out into like such diversity in life. Okay. All right. So this is one, I didn't do one on cells. I did one on ecosystems because this is more in line with what you'll see, but you will see stuff on there about cell theory, the 3 parts of the cell theory and all that. I do have that on the free study guide and in the paid, but I wanted to use this one because this helps me understand a lot. I'm going to talk about this more in depth than just this question. So again, answer choices: thinking like a test maker, grass, hawk, snake, bunny. Which of the following is a producer? Okay. Now, I have this, it says 100% producer here, and I have that for a reason. They may not have that it may just be like this. Okay. The grass is the producer. This is where all the energy is. This is where all the carbohydrates are. It's in the plants. The bunny eats that and gets some energy, and the bunny expends some energy as it hops along. The snake eats the bunny, so it gets some of the energy the bunny got from the grass, but not all of it, right? Because the bunny's hopping around and expended some of that energy. But when the snake eats the bunny, it gets some of that. Then this bird eats the snake and it gets some energy, but not all the energy. And then the hawk eats this bird, right? Thing to remember, as you move up the energy pyramid, energy is lost. It's reduced. Most of the energy is here in the grasses. Why? Well, the sun beats down on the grass and the water falls from the sky. The grass uses H2O, the sun, and carbon dioxide to make carbohydrates or sugar. The bunny eats the sugar and through a process of cellular respiration is able to hop around and use that energy, right? So the energy is coming from the plants. That's why carbs give you energy, right? So just understand that as we move up the energy pyramid, we are losing energy. But in this case, the grass is 100% producer. Okay. Somebody's asking, what is the general grade of the science subtest? It's K through 6. So it can be anything from K through 6. Physical science, we're talking about physics here. And chemistry, physical and chemical changes, forces of motion, your potential versus kinetic energy, electricity, forms of energy, machines. I have a whole chart of this in the book. You got to remember your levers, your pulleys, your wedges, stuff you may not have thought about in a while. So it's all good. And then, of course, inquiry. We want students to be thinking, why does that happen? I wonder why that happens. Asking questions. All right. I have these two on your free study guide that you got with this. And again, the link is in my bio or it's in the description to get that free study guide. It's presented like this. Okay. I'm going to read this one to you first, but I'm going to show you the diagram so it's a little more clear here. All right. Someone's saying one thing that I struggle is crossing genetics one. It's hard for me to understand. Vanessa, I'll do a Punnett square for you before we're done with this because genetics is like my jam. I'll make sure I do a Punnett square for you on this before we leave. Okay. So let me just show you this first. Okay. So we have, which of the following is an accurate depiction of how lightning works? All right. So basically what happens with lightning, and again, I am making this very, very simple. Okay. There's a lot that goes on. We're talking elementary ed. We're just trying to explain it. And again, I'm not a PhD in physics. Electrons and protons and just particles are moving around, right? And what happens is positively charged. So this is the ground here. Actually, let me do that again. Here's the ground. A little bit above there. Okay. Positively charged particles push themselves up to the top of the ground, and negatively charged particles move towards the bottom, like inside the ground. And then because positives and negatives attract, what happens is the negative particles move down. the cloud, and the positive ones move up the cloud. And these negative particles become attracted to these positive particles, and lightning happens. Now, some of you who are more schooled in your physics, you may have a more nuanced definition of this, but for the K6 exam, that's all you need to know. Basically, particles start to separate based on positive and negative charges. The ground becomes positively charged. The cloud's negative charges move down to the bottom of the cloud, so they're close to the ground. When a connection is made, the lightning forms. And that's what happens. Now, in the book, it's done this way, and A is the correct answer. When the ground becomes positively charged, the negatively charged electrons in the cloud move down the cloud towards the ground, and lightning occurs. A is right. B, the ground becomes negatively charged. No. C, particles in the cloud become intermingled. No. If they're intermingled, they're not delineated enough to make a charge to the ground. They need to separate, right? So C is out. D, particles on the ground become intermingled. No, they're not intermingled. They're actually separating quite nicely. If we look at this one here, and I'm going to zoom in just really quick. And again, it's in the book, and I have a huge diagram in the book as well. You can see how the top of the cloud is positively charged, the bottom of the cloud is negative, and then the ground below is positive. This becomes lightning. Okay? And again, some of you who are lightning experts may have a better explanation, but I'm sticking to my explanation on that one. All right, and the last one has to do with energy here. This is a pendulum. You'll see lots of pendulums when it comes to energy. At what point of the graph is potential energy the highest? Potential energy is the highest at A. It has the potential to move. The higher I pull it, the more potential energy it has. Just like if I have this pen, it's high up in the air, way up here. It has more potential energy than if I drop it from down here. Kinetic energy is at its highest right here, right as it comes down the bottom. It goes shoo. All right. So highest potential, highest kinetic. Then we go here. Then E. E's got potential, but not as high as A. D's got kinetic, but not as high as C. All right, and that is that. Punnett square, let's go over that because somebody's asking, and Punnett squares are fun. All right, so they might ask you about a Punnett square, and basically you're just talking about heredity. What are you inheriting from mom and dad? And typically on this exam, they are going to be simple. So you have a Punnett square. I'm just going to do 4. All right, so I'm going to put mom up here, and dad is over here. All right. So let's say we're doing, and this is very simplified. Let's say we're doing eye color. All right. And big B is brown. It's dominant. And small b is blue. So this is dominant. And little b is recessive. If you have a big B, it overpowers the little b. Meaning, if you inherit B, you're going to have brown eyes. The only way to have blue eyes is to have 2 little b's. Okay, this is how they usually present it on an elementary ed exam. So let's say mom has brown eyes, but she has a recessive gene for blue. And let's say dad has the same. Dad's got brown eyes, but he also carries a recessive gene for blue. All right, so dad is big B, little b, mom is big B, little b. So when we start to do the Punnett square, what we do is for this square here, we're taking this B and this B together. So this firstborn child, let's just say this firstborn child, is big B, all brown, dominant, no recessive alleles. Okay. Then we go to this square here. We're going B, and then this one here, you go up to here. This is big B, little b. This child also has brown eyes. However, she has inherited, or he has inherited, a small b for blue eyes. For this one here, this block here, we're going little b, big B. But you always put the big B first. And then this last square is little b, 25% chance that your offspring will have blue eyes. 1 in 4. That's how they do it. Now, let's say, so in order to even get the 25% chance, somebody's got to have recessive alleles here. If this were, let's just do another one. Make sure you can see it on the thing. Let's say mom has big B, little b, but dad is big B, big B. 0% chance of getting blue eyes. You'll have a recessive allele in there. So like this kid is full brown. This kid is brown, but has a recessive allele for blue. This kid is full brown. This kid is recessive allele for blue, 50-50. However, nobody's going to show blue eyes. But let's say this kid mates with another person over here that's big B, little b. They will have a 25% chance of having a kid with blue eyes. All right. So that's how you do a Punnett square. Typically on the exam, they're going to show you this one because they want that 25% recessive allele. That's like a standard kind of science-y elementary ed genetics question. They want to show like, it's 25% chance. Now, someone says all three of my children got brown eyes and mine are green blue. Yes, Melanie, it's just a 25% chance. And if you have multiple children, they could still have, we're talking about experimental probability versus real probability. You could still have like the way the alleles split, you could all your kids could be little b, right? But it is an experimental probability. It would be 25% chance. All right. Okay. So that does that. Let me stop sharing here. All right. So it looks like we are done. Let me just take some more questions. Hang on. Let me go here. Stop sharing. No. Hang on. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So we are done here. I just want to make sure that you all know where to go for more resources. So I have tons of resources. Again, let me share screen really quickly. Let's go here. On my website, of course, we have the study guide for my TikTok people. It's going to be way out here. You can get it on Amazon. You have a coupon code in the email and in the chat for 20% off. We also have extra practice tests. I know some of you love the practice tests. We do have extra practice tests and bundles available there. All right. Then you can also get it on Amazon. I can't offer you a discount code on Amazon because Amazon determines it. Let me say one thing about Amazon though. Buy the book, the brand new book. If you buy used, it's going to have writing in it. People are like, oh, my book had writing in it. And it was like, well, you bought it used. And the problem with that is I have no control over that. You bought from a third party. So buy it from Prime and get a new book. Don't buy the used, or buy it from our website here and you get a digital download that's sent to you immediately after purchase. Now, if you also want, you can buy our online course, which comes with everything. The book, all the videos, everything here. It's awesome. You should definitely check it out. And here is what it looks like. Let me go here, share this tab instead. You can see here for the mathematics, like this one here, we've got, area, shape, perimeter, videos on all of that. I also have all the slides I use in there, videos. Like if you are struggling in math, this is going to help you because I go through it. Every single little skill, every single question. And then of course, for the online, we have, the social studies. I've done a lot to beef up the social studies as well. Sorry, I have to, there we go. Lots of, just quizzes. There's online quizzes here for you. So you can take the quiz. It'll tell you why something is correct or incorrect. Lots of very detailed answer explanations there. And then of course, I tell you why. I go through the quiz and say why something is correct, why something is not correct. And of course, lots of really good information, long videos on everything. Very, very detailed. All right. Now, beyond that, let's go to, I'm on TikTok right now. I'm live on TikTok. So if you're with me on TikTok, it doesn't look like anybody's with me on TikTok, but that's okay. You can find lots of short videos here, lots of math, lots of different things. This is all free for you. My YouTube channel is super robust. This has much longer form videos. So test strategy, a whole playlist there, writing an essay, all the previous subject area exams there. Another thing I want you to see, free webinars. This was a free webinar, obviously today, link in bio or link in the description. Next week, actually the 19th. So not next week, I'll be out of town. The week after is October 19th. I'm doing special ed. And then October 26th is going to be teaching reading. So you can sign up for those. Those are really fun. And then of course, my Facebook page, that's always good. Yeah. So that's basically it. If you need anything, let us know. We will be sending out that email to you. So make sure you check your email once this is over. You will get everything you need from us, the links to the products, links to the offer code, the replay for this if you want to play it again. I really appreciate you all being here with me on a Saturday. I know you're tired. It's been a crazy year already, I am sure. And many of you are, working, you have children. It's like a lot. So being here with me on a Saturday has been great. We had almost 100 people live the whole time while we were in our webinar. I had people on TikTok and Facebook and everywhere, YouTube and everywhere else. And I'm just so grateful that you guys take the time to be with me on a Saturday to go through all of this stuff. People are feeling encouraged. I'm so happy for you guys. You guys are awesome. I appreciate everything you do. Teachers are so important. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at info@kathleenjasper.com, and it will be our pleasure to help you. So have a look at, Christina, are there PLT videos on YouTube? There's a whole thing on YouTube. I also have free webinars. Go to that webinars tab. PLT I just did, I think 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. I do so many, but yes. And I have a whole PLT program on my website, books, videos, just like this. The PLT is our jam. Yes, Gabby, you all have this. I know you guys can do it. I believe in you. If it's okay if it takes you longer. Oh, test anxiety really quickly. Try to focus on the task and less on the outcomes. Something that's helping me is I am detaching from outcomes. I am just, I know that when I'm in a task, when I'm teaching students and I'm not looking at the clock and I'm not thinking about the test and I'm not thinking about lunch, I am just in it with my kids. The time goes by so quickly. When I'm at work and I'm in it and I'm writing or I'm doing something, I look up, oh my God, it's already 3:00. That's how you want to attack these exams. Stay in the process. Forget about the outcomes. You will eventually pass. I promise you, you will. You just can't give up. And remember, it takes lots of people multiple times to take this and the others. It's expensive. It's disheartening. But your kids are going through the same stuff with their certificate or their, not certification, but their standardized exams. So take this experience and apply it to your teaching. Show your students that you understand what they're going through. And I promise you, you will definitely be able to do that. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day and be on the lookout for that email for all the free stuff and all the information.